Then we could have called it the Pilot's Lounge, which is unlike our current title. A title has not been used 9 times. That was the other thing we've discovered, Mike, is that we pointed a bunch of people to this podcast, and they were like, there are like 5 other podcasts called Co-Pilots, 2 of which are about pilots, and 1 which has a co-host named Andy.
There's 1 billion food and 1 billion movie podcast. There's a million of them.
Yeah.
There's too many of them.
So you were going to do exactly the same idea.
Yeah, so on the Doughboys Double, every so often we used to do pilot program.
Right.
And Nick and I would do we reviewed Cheers and other bullshit.
Which you said was good, right?
Which it is good.
So
just spoiler alert for when you guys get
Sean.
to Cheers.
I'm going to put Cheers on the list.
And then Jack and I were like, let's spin that off into its own podcast, because Jack wanted to do a podcast. He's like, let's do one. I was like, we do this thing and we can make it like a full podcast. And then we made art for it. We're like going to record
as far
it.
as
And
the
then
art.
Jack is like,
I like that you led with the art. The art was the last thing we did.
The art was, everything was done. It's crazy. I want to see if I can find it. But I also don't even know if I should bring it up. I just want to tell you because it's funny.
That's amazing.
But Jack was like, at the last minute, was like, I don't want to do podcasts.
The decision that all of us should have made.
But that does make me think we've been going about this the wrong way. Like, had we started with the art, we would have gotten farther.
Yeah. It would have answered all of our debates and questions. Like, look, it's supposed to look like the poster.
We drew Jack and I as pilots.
That's
Are you guys
exactly
doing
what
this?
we
Are you
did.
doing a similar
Have you
thing?
seen the art for us?
No.
We drew you and Jack as pilots, and Andy and I are.
And then Sean said, come on, it should be these guys.
Yeah.
Us, yeah.
I like that his only reason for not doing it was just the obvious one of like, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to do a podcast.
That is truly what it was. And I was like, by the way, I'm doing Andy Secunda's podcast tomorrow. I was like, it's the pilot I just want to tell him. And he was like, good. He's like, God bless you all for doing podcasts.
Well, Mitch, thank you for, by the way, referring to it as Andy Secunda's podcast, because that's how I also see it.
That's not fair. Sean, I did not mean that.
No. That's how I see it too. That's why I do so little on this show. You know, I am so not invested in any way in this. I'm like, sure. Let's have Mike Mitchell on. Great. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Co-Pilots. I am Sean Conroy.
And I'm Andy Secunda.
On this podcast, we talk about TV pilots, the first episodes of television shows. Sometimes pilots become long-running series. Others don't make it past that first episode.
We're going to talk about all of them. The great pilots, the bad pilots, the weird pilots, the forgotten pilots. We are TV writers, but it should be noted that we are the dumbest TV writers you know, so all of these are just our dumb opinions.
So dumb. Yeah. Well, this is great because we have a guest for the very first time on the show, which is exciting. With us today is Mike Mitchell, who is one of the members of the Birthday Boys, a fantastic sketch comedy group. He was also in the TV series Love. He had an amazing role in that. He was in The Tomorrow War. I loved The Tomorrow War. I loved you in The Tomorrow War. And lots of other things. So welcome, Mike.
It's an honor to be here. I've been a fan of both of you for so long. A big fan. You're two hilarious guys, and I'm honored to be on the podcast. It's a true honor.
I'm a fan of yours, not a fan of Andy's. But go ahead, Andy.
I appreciate that, Sean. I was going to question that you were honored to be on this podcast that is Nowheresville, but then you made it that you were a fan of ours, and I still my internal sensors went, it still seems fake.
I saw Sean be hilarious doing improv. When I first came to the UCB, Sean was already so funny, and you would come from New York at that point, Sean, right?
Yeah.
And Andy, I grew up on Conan, and I know that the joke, the Darth Vader joke, or which button do you use to call your mom to pick you up? Is that what it is? That's your joke.
I mean, it was funnier in the original rendition out of Triumph's Mouth.
Yeah, yes. You're saying I botched it?
No, I appreciate the shout out on it.
I mean, it's a
Mitch.
great joke. I've been a fan of both of yours forever. So and you know what? I've been a fan of the show that we're talking about too forever. So it's
The Simpsons.
It's a real
Yes.
I like how the guest manipulated us into, segued us into discussing.
It's
the
already
topic we're here to
showing. He's already
discuss.
showing
Yeah.
his superior chops in the podcasting form.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
well,
not
it's-
on my podcast. I'm not the suave one at all. I do not
I think that
move
should-
things forward.
That should give you some sense of where we are on the chain of ability. That you were the one who had to say, "Hey, we're doing The Simpsons today, right?"
Yeah, I would have been here for another half an hour going, do you remember any specific jokes of mine that were really funny? Not just Andy?
I put out to Mitch because I realized the importance of, as the first guest, if in fact we don't put someone else first, but I'm assuming this is going to be the first one because it's a Christmas episode. You're kind of locked in that way. We're going to try and get
Welcome to our final episode, folks.
It may also be our final episode. But I pointed out that he is the Bill Murray to our Letterman, to elevate both of us to an insane degree, because Bill Murray was always Letterman's first guest.
That's always a tough, but you're being very nice by saying, like, oh, you're like but it just means I'm the first guest. But you know, when people
you're
are
going
like,
to be
I'm
as
kind of like
funny as Bill Murray is what I'm trying to set up here.
There are comedians that are like, I'm kind of like a Farley type. Like there are guys who are that confident, which is insane to me. I never, you know what I mean? I get very easy being compared to anyone who's funny.
Well, that's why
I don't think it's true.
I go Harold Lloyd because people don't really remember, what,
and he was
what
a
does that
silent,
mean?
he was a silent comedian. So all he had to do was speak, and then sort of like, hey,
he could be right. We don't know. Yeah,
seems a little bit more personable than the silent comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Sean, I just want to say that's a joke of yours right there that I liked immediately. There we go.
Well, I feel like there's a little bit of recency bias there.
That's true. I saw you do improv, which is harder to. I mean, Andy, it was a kind of a coward's move to the written stuff, and the improv is.
Now we're talking. Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I took the coward's way out, slaving away over jokes for hours and hours, having them winnowed down from a pile of them to just one.
He's not up there on that improv tightrope taking a risk,
We can all agree we're in the podcasting avenue because that's the laziest person's way out. If you're just having a conversation, you're still okay. You don't even have any expectation of being funny.
It was truly my co-host was done being on stage. It was kind of how our podcast came to be. It was like, I don't want to be on stage anymore. It was like, all right.
Is that what happened? Weiger was how long did he do improv for?
He did improv for a really long time. It was really funny too. Sean, did you coached their team at one point, didn't you?
I definitely worked with Nick quite a bit a long time ago, and he was great. I remember really enjoying what he did on stage. Apparently he did not, so that's too bad.
he decided one day he was like, that's it, I'm done. He just was like, I'm done, and he retired for real. He never went back.
It's actually
which
pretty
is kind of impressive. Yeah,
I feel like that shows a certain mental health that other people such as myself are lacking.
Yeah, but also he's like, it's also kind of scary how little it maybe meant to him. You're like, it didn't mean a little bit to you? And he's kind of like, nope. You're like, oh, all right.
You're saying
you're
forwarding the sociopath theory.
A little bit.
Yeah. Improv meant nothing. Human beings meant nothing to him.
I think that is his take. I don't want to quote him, but he is kind of like he's a scary man. I love him, and he was a great improviser. So it is sad, but he put his foot down, which also kind of scares you that he just one day will be like, our podcast is done, and you're like, oh, all right, I guess it's over.
Are you scared
it won't have
about
meant
that
anything
day?
to him.
So you're not.
I mean, also it's a release too. It feels like it would be freedom in some ways.
Right. Yes. We're just at the beginning of our.
I do
terrible
text Andy every
marriage.
night saying, "This is it, we're done," and then the next morning I'm like, "Kidding again."
Yeah, it's really cruel, actually. It's not a comfortable way to live.
He keeps him up every night. He just lies in bed awake, going, "Are we really done?"
So I thought we would begin this conversation. As you are our first guest, this is all going to be even more ramshackle than usual. But Mitch, I was curious if generally speaking, you have TV ringers that you're like, these are amongst my favorite shows that I just keep going back to.
Oh man, well, I mean, Simpsons is one of them. And then I'll always watch a Seinfeld if it's on.
Sure.
I told you beforehand, Cheers is not only that it takes place in Boston, which is nice,
Right.
but also I think that is I think it's my favorite multicam sitcom of all time.
Right.
And you said it's good, yeah?
I did my review for the Cheers pilot. Spoiler alert! I told these guys it's good. It is good. It's a good. It is a good pilot.
Okay, then that's torn
Just
it.
gonna
We're
write
gonna
that
do
down again.
we're gonna do Cheers at some point on the Pilots podcast.
Cheers is a great one. I mean, I always will watch Sopranos over and over again, which is a very different, much like today's pilot. It feels very different from
In
what
its
the show
pilot.
kind of became.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is a thing that we like to sort of dig into. I don't know if you had a chance, Mitch, to look at not just the Christmas episode of The Simpsons, which was the official first, quote, pilot, but the first Simpsons short that aired on the Tracy Ullman Show, and then the aborted pilot that ended up in a later episode of The Simpsons, sort of at least piecemeal.
Yeah.
So maybe we start off talking about the short.
Yeah, the short is I guess called Good Night. That's the name that I saw affixed to it. And it starts with Bart and Homer. Bart is just in that phase of curiosity that kids go through, and he wants to understand the world. He asks Homer what the mind is, which is kind of a difficult question to answer. And Homer does his best, which is not great. And then we spend some time with Lisa being told to not let the bedbugs bite her by Marge. And
as is the phrase, don't let the bedbugs bite her.
I like to say it exactly the way it is on the show.
Sure.
I hope you don't end up pulling an all-nighter, but don't let the bedbugs bite her. And then we get Maggie, who gets sung the lullaby, Rockabye Baby. And of course, Homer and Marge are so proud of themselves for being great parents and putting the kids to bed so easily, and the kids are all terrified.
Fully clothed in bed.
Oh, that's a good catch. Yeah.
Just wearing whatever they were wearing, I guess, like in every other scene.
Yeah.
They're just in their bed and Homer and Marge too, I believe, are fully clothed in their bed. Homer sounds like Walter Matthau. I was gonna say to you guys that when you go back and listen to this episode, your voices are gonna sound really different. It's gonna be as different as Homer sounds in this.
I don't think that's true.
Years from now, I'll just be like, wow, I sounded like this. Yeah, Homer, that's the most startling thing, is the change in the characterization of Homer, who's more like this, like you're right, just like this mush mouth. Well, okay, Marge.
What's
So
mine?
it sounds like he's being slowed down. It's very disturbing.
And Marge sounds like that. And she sounds like,
Right.
It's crazy. It's like a 40-year-old woman doing the voice at that point.
Yeah.
It's like a young lady, a young woman doing the voice, and she sounds very insane. Yeah, she sounds ancient.
Yeah, I guess it's closer to what Marge's sisters became in terms of characterization for Julie.
Bart
Kavner.
pretty kind of consistent, right? I mean, he's a little off.
Yeah,
I
Bart
guess, but-
stayed same, but that's probably just because that's her voice.
yeah.
And I thought as a comedic concept, it worked pretty well. Like, I enjoyed the idea behind it.
It was very succinct. Just to add on to that, that's probably just because that was Nancy Cartwright's actual voice. And
Yeardley Smith's real voice too, basically.
Right.
Lisa.
And so that's why probably through all of these, they're the ones that are the closest to who they would later be as characters. But also, the one thing that bumped me, there's the Homer voice, 100%, and then also the first interaction of Bart and Homer are completely seem fully off character. It doesn't seem like he would be saying "Good night, son" in such an affectionate way. His first line is, "Dad, what is the mind? Is it just a system of impulses, or is it something tangible? Relax, what is mind? No matter, what is matter? Never mind." And it's such a weird cerebral wordplay, that Homer would never be capable of and Bart would never be interested in. But I wondered if you're, as a longtime fan, Mitch, if you felt like Bart was oh, he does have shades of that later on.
I mean, he is. It seems like he's way more thoughtful. I mean, they kind of make Bart a little bit dumber as the show goes on too, but
Right. Obviously Homer.
yeah, Homer, gets dumber and dumber and dumber. But like, yeah, this is like still the Simpsons going to church mode. They're like a church going family,
Right.
and that vibe it's funny to watch it because I'm like this caused like mass like hysteria. Like people went like insane over the Simpsons for. Like this is the genesis of it all. Is this short? Which does feel the most from. It feels like a Matt Groening comic strip, I guess, in many ways. I'm like, oh, I can see this being a Simpsons comic strip, and not me being like, oh, okay, that was it. It's not bad, like you guys were saying. It's just I don't know how it led to. I think Bart's attitude maybe later on is what caused people to go crazy.
Yeah, I mean, my recollection certainly is that The Simpsons really offended people a little later in the sequence of things. We'll get to the whole pilot later, but there's a couple things in the pilot which that's the stuff that people were like, how dare someone do that kind of thing?
Which is so crazy because that
tame, yeah.
Yeah, that pilot is, even in Simpsons terms, is the softest, most treacly version of The Simpsons that we're going to see. Do you want to talk about the aborted pilot, which is, I understand it was, and later became partly Some Enchanted Evening, but like it's just the most crude sort of visual versions of these characters and vocal versions of these characters. And just like Homer looks completely weird, and all of the characterizations are sort of off somehow.
I'm kind of against the abortion. Well, I fixed the. I shouldn't. What am I? I'm fucking up my words here. Don't quote me on any of that. But
thanks for coming on our podcast and ruining it immediately, Mitch.
Well, I mean, I will say, had they overturned Roe v. Wade before this pilot, we would have seen it as the pilot.
Such a bad idea for the direction of our first guest.
I think that there's some stuff in this pilot that shouldn't have been aborted. I think that there is some stuff visually where I'm like, it kind of is weirder than The Simpsons was for the first few years. It's like the animation style is kind of like bizarre and cool, but I like what The Simpsons became, so I'm not like,
This is sort of the interesting thing. I'm very interested
in get that out there.
Say that last part again.
I'm pro-abortion. I'm pro that they aborted it, okay. And also in the other way.
We'll make sure we'll put that. This will be the clip at the top of the episode to get people really interested and want to watch it, want to listen to the rest. Well, I'm curious before I get to the second part of it. What are the aesthetic aspects that like grabbed you and that you liked?
It was funny because it probably is like stuff that I like over time. I think it was just interesting to see the Simpsons look this way.
Yeah,
but they looked like a little like slippier and more cartoony almost, and like. The house kind of had like, like the hallways would seem big at times. And it felt like very much like where I think what they went into was kind of more realism, like even though the show can be insane. But in that pilot specifically, the one that they got rid of, it is like, oh, this feels way more like a cartoon than eventually what they went to.
I think that's a really good point, and I also think it's like it kind of reminds me of early Mickey Mouse in how he's kind of a little bit more roughly drawn, and Oswald the Rabbit and all the other versions of Disney before they sort of evolved into the corporate version of Mickey Mouse. But I think also it's probably more similar to Matt Groening's original cartoons, and it kind of highlights how even drawing the same characters and the same concept and a lot of the same choices in terms of colors and everything else, that stylistically it could be so different. And it's interesting that when a cartoon show that's been running so long just locks into its style and it's just like, no, that's how that character is always going to be drawn, and maybe we'll make adjustments over time, but that's basically it.
It's like Robert Downey Jr. in Back to School, and then you see him as Iron Man, and he's really like totally different style. And
Sean, that's just a human being. He just aged and was in different parts. That's not a cartoon character.
Be that as it may.
I agree. I agree with Sean.
I think there is also a later episode. I think it's the Clip Show with maybe Troy McClure hosting, where where it's like they show a clip of one of these first things, and he's basically saying, "This is what it originally looked like," and it's them being weird, and Homer's weird, like, "Well, why? This is what I think, boy," and it's sort of slow as a lot of this is, and then it cuts back to Troy McClure, and he's sort of looking at it like stunned, like, and then he realizes the camera's on him, and he goes, "Ha ha 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 ha!" It's a great bit. So
yeah, it really does. I mean, in many ways, it is. I mean, I love it, but it is kind of shitty, right? Like it is.
It's
but
also interesting. It's also interesting to look at in terms of story stuff, because to me it feels very, I don't know, proof of concept or something, where it was almost like prove to us that you can tell a story, and the story is kind of there, even though they don't get real into all of it. You go, oh, okay, this could be an interesting story in some way,
Yeah.
Yes. They also are more hostile, the Simpsons, I think, generally to each other in this version. I think that Homer's angrier, and I think he's a little bit angrier even in the episode we're about to cover, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. He has a little bit more anger than I think he later. I think they play him more toward just dumb, and he'll do the strangling Bart kind of thing, but he won't be overall as hostile. And in this one, it's like he's not kissing Marge on the way out. This is, to me, the biggest distinction I would make, is that Homer loves Marge and tells her he loved. They even make a point in the Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire about, I don't remember what the line is, but basically he's saying, "I just want to tell you I love you." And she's like, "You tell me that all the time." And it's like, it's very clear. And in this little pilot, he's like walking out the door. He doesn't care about her. She's calling the call-in show to complain about him.
She says, "My husband is a selfish pig."
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like Marge
hardcore.
would never say that.
Yeah.
Unless that was part of a specific story point in that episode.
There is a one later. There was an episode a couple seasons in where she's like, Marge has this storyline basically where she calls into like a radio help line. Like I think they use this story later on. But you're right. It feels like Jim Brooks watched the pilot and then it got like a Jim Brooks like family treatment. It feels like it really like they really, really switched it up. Which honestly kind of works too.
Well,
I mean, it does.
This is the weird thing. And then I would say that a lot of my struggles early on starting writing sitcom fare is that I, like you, came from like Seinfeld is more where it's at, if anything is. So it's more, let's do more cynical and more, a little bit of a darker underside. And they're always pushing in the opposite direction. And it's interesting to look at this pilot, the first pilot versus Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire, because it's sort of like, oh yeah, I don't know if I would have been on board with these people. You kind of, and it allows you, if you have that love, and I think this is true on the Goldbergs too, because there was sort of a hostile undertone on the Goldbergs that they kept pushing away from, and we eventually locked into that Beverly can get away with anything as long as it's in the context of that she's doing this for the love of her children, whether it's true or it's not, even though it's obviously out of narcissism. That's what the character thinks. And I think by the same token, you can have Homer be an idiot and constantly screw up and even be greedy and sort of act selfishly, as long as essentially he loves Marge and he is committed to this family. Mm-hmm. And that is, I think, a little in doubt in this first version.
Yeah, he slams the door in her face, Marge's face.
Yeah, as she's trying to kiss him.
Yes, he's trying to kiss him. It is very cartoony. I mean, it is now. I feel like so many shows are probably closer to that, right? I don't know how many shows are kind of like take their time and are based in animated shows and based in reality. I mean, like Bob's Burgers or something, right?
Well, I came up differently. My influences early on were the sweet shows like Full House, that type of thing, which is how I ended up really enjoying working on Mr. Pickles, which was just a very sweet family show. So we didn't really.
But obviously that is on Adult Swim, so it's a whole different handbook, and they can get away with anything. To go back to the sort of the overview of this, since we were talking about the shorts, I have a feeling, Mitch, you're being much younger than us. Maybe you didn't see the original Simpsons shorts, or did you see them later? Because I saw them originally during Tracy Ullman's show, and those were the parts that I loved the most.
That's funny. No, I didn't watch Tracy Ullman's show. I didn't, because was that an HBO show, right? Was it on? And I was also
it was a Fox show, I believe.
Was it a Fox? Yeah. I was also in when The Simpsons came out, I was in first grade. So I don't know. I knew that there was hype when the show came out, and I was watching it that first year, like in the first season, and I had a Bart Simpson t-shirt, and that was what caused the big problems at elementary schools and stuff.
Right. There was a whole thing where you were not allowed to wear Bart Simpson t-shirts to school anymore at some point or something like that. You know?
Yeah.
Right.
There was even there was a Maggie t-shirt that just said suck, and people were like,
right.
You can't wear that. The Bart Simpson t-shirt, which the line that he says, Sean, which you were referencing, that which he says in the pilot is, I'm Bart Simpson, who the hell are you? Which
right.
is like,
and that just drove people out of their minds.
It's so insane.
Which it is. It is. It does feel like I did watch Family Matters and Full House and all the like the kind of bad sitcoms, and it is like it's really not that far from any of those shows. Like it's basically just saying hell. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
But rewatching the pilot, and I haven't rewatched the first season in a while, but I used to rewatch seasons like 1 through 8 every couple of years because I love those 8, and I still think that they are still like some of the funniest TV that there is. But
now,
first season I haven't watched through in a while.
Now, are you of the demo and the Simpsons fan base that believes this is the point? Like you have a decision in your head of like this is the point when the Simpsons quote went off the rails or wasn't as good as it was before? Because I know the Simpsons diehards, like a lot of them believe like, oh, it wasn't as good. I personally speaking, as someone who has not been watching as carefully, over time, anytime I check back in, I can see the change in tone over time, but I always think that there are fantastic jokes in even, up to the 35th season, which is what they're in now.
So I worked there. Did you know this? That I worked there as an assistant.
This is perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Inside scoop.
I worked there for about 4 years. The last writer's strike in 2007.
Yeah.
I was working on a show called Shark with James Woods. He's a great guy, of course, as we all know.
He seems very cool.
Yeah, it's a cool show to work on as a James Wood show. And the 2007 writer's strike started, and I had been out here for a couple of years at that point, and I was on the Fox lot, and I just called the Simpsons offices, and I was like, hey, are you guys like hiring? And then I got a job as an assistant to the writers. And so when I started there, it was right after the movie had come out. And so there was a bit of like, hey, we're back sort of a vibe there. But then also even in the first day, I won't say who the writer was, but even in my first day there was a writer who was like, we're all just waiting for the show to die. That's what he told me on the first day.
And this was after. Was this?
This
is 2007, so this is 16 years ago.
Well, the great thing about writers in Hollywood and being in a writer's room is that everybody is always so positive. But by the way, I feel like there's like a Lovecraftian creature right next to your
my cat Irma's tail. I apologize. I'm like now pushing her head away from the computer.
I'm such a showbiz.
Sorry.
I'm such a showbiz douche that I thought that you had an extra boom mic that you had. I was just like, that's weird. This guy's this guy is a podcasting pro. He's adjusting his own boom mic.
That's just Irma's tail popping in, and she is actively trying to close the laptop.
Even then, they were like, this fucking thing is over, basically.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely guys who thought that, but also like they were all fun. Even the guy who said that was like one of the nicest guys there and super positive. Mm-hmm. I think they just are all like, we've been lucky for so long.
Right.
And like one of the writers who has since passed away there, and I loved him. He was like, he came in to get his paycheck one time, and he was like, do you want to see it? And I was like, yeah. It was for 2 weeks, and it was more than I made in the entire year in 2 weeks. And I was like,
I'm sure.
Oh, why would you ever leave this job? First of all, it is like an institute. It's like an SNL thing. I feel like over time it maybe doesn't feel as much like that anymore. But I don't know. But I think there's so many funny people there that are hilarious, and they still write funny jokes, and they still write good episodes. It's just that there's a million more channels now, and I still think anytime like, you offer anyone to come to a Simpsons table read and stuff like that, they go crazy because it's like, it still has that appeal, but I don't know.
For sure.
I just don't know.
I'd be excited
it was a new, like Fox was a new network. It was the time of like the real culture wars of who the hell are you? How are they allowed to say that? That's a that's a harbinger of the decline of Western civilization. Things are just gonna, and luckily those culture wars all ended in the 90s, and we haven't had to deal with that ever since then. But it was very, it was very new, and I feel like that's just not true anymore. Obviously,
Yeah.
There's lots of other stuff that's come out that's like, oh, that's cool, but it's all been influenced by those first several seasons.
Yeah, South Park, which I love. I mean, like, in South Park came out when I was like 13 or 14, and I did love South Park when it came out. And I give credit to both of those shows because I still think that South Park makes funny comedy. I think The Simpsons does too. I watch South Park more than I probably watch The Simpsons, but Matt Selman, Selman, he kind of runs the show over at The Simpsons now, and Al Jean was, I think, still works in that capacity in some ways, but he was the showrunner when I was there, and I think it's Matt Selman now, and I love Selman. He's so funny, and he does a great job. It's just like you're saying, Sean. There's a million different versions of The Simpsons that are, like, it's Rick and Morty or whatever or now even past Rick and Morty. Now Rick and Morty is like dated probably, but.
And connecting those two together, South Park and The Simpsons, a question that I had, and maybe you have some perspective on, although I don't know how deep inside the writer's room you were, or if you were just getting coffee. But
I was mostly getting coffee, but it was fun to be there during like The Simpsons, like the biography, or like the like the SNL history book.
Yeah.
There was like a complete history of The Simpsons that came out when I was there, and I remember they were on a writer's retreat, and I told Al, the showrunner, I was like, did you see the book yet? And he was like, no, and he was like, go get me like 3 copies, and I got them, and it was for him and Matt Groening and Jim Brooks. And then the next day, one of the writers were like, you asshole, they like read that book all night, and like we didn't get anything done. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
I love everything about this. First of all, the first story you told about the writer being like, I'm just waiting for this to be canceled, on this like incredibly lucrative, like enviable position, couldn't be more comedy writer. And this story too, of just like, it's about their entire, life's work, and yet the comedy writers who are in the staff in the room are just like, oh, now we have to stay late.
Well, do you know what's crazy? I mean, when I first got there, it was after the writer's strike, so they had to do like double duty basically, and they were staying till like 9 and 10 and like sometimes 11 p.m.
That, by the way, sounds like a dream to me.
Yeah. I mean, they could come in at like 11 or even 11:30 or something, like,
right.
But they were staying later, and it was, I think, a time where they're like, oh, fuck, this kind of sucks. It was double time, and they weren't extremely happy. But yeah, it's funny because Fox also kind of treated them like shit, which is another funny showbiz thing where it's like,
even at the point you were at, that you were there, which is like well into they're a dependable, constant moneymaker that can't be killed.
Yeah, no, I mean, like, and still, like, internationally, we're just like cleaning up, of course. But when I was there too, like, there's two sides of this. One, I got lunches. I was the lunch guy, but they would spend.
Hosted Doughboys getting them lunch. This is what a time to be alive.
It was.
I heard he was going to have another podcast about pilots, but then he didn't.
This is true, which I thought would be interesting to discuss about a podcast pilot I never made.
Yes, which was called Pilot Program.
I was doing it with Jack Allison, as like I said, Jack was like, let's not podcast anymore, which maybe for all of us is the right answer.
No, yeah.
As we've discussed.
He's way ahead of the curve on that. Me and Sean are completely deluded. We decided to get into the podcasting game just as it was about done, except unless you're internationally famous. Gosh, I have so many questions because I also was like, why Pilot Program? Because we've certainly debated endlessly co-pilots.
Pilot Program was like, I don't know, because it just is a term, I guess. We were like, Pilot Program, it works.
Sounds like you gave it just fractionally less thought than we gave ours.
It was like on a list of for our Patreon episodes, it was like on a list of like, what should we do for Patreon episodes? And one of them was me just being like, Pilot Program. We would discuss a pilot, and then we rank it as like first class or business plus or whatever.
Should we steal that show?
Please
We've
do.
been trying to figure out a ranking system that doesn't feel bullshit.
Please do. Please steal first class. Which Cheers is a first class pilot, I'll say, besides being good.
Sort of Coach end up.
Ironically, not in Coach, I don't think. I think it's actually a pretty good pilot, I believe, Coach. I think it's like business plus. Why not?
Maybe this is the way we
Should I
just
have just said coach? I should have just said coach.
Yes, that's Sean. What
No,
Sean
no,
just
there's
gave you
no
is
right answer.
Sean just gave you an improv note just there. That's your hero, Mitch. That's your improv hero.
He's making me laugh still. I do
shut
feel like
up.
I messed up. Sorry.
This was the
I'm
question.
going to take that and work it into a joke that we can use for triumph.
I was also an able improviser, Mitch. I just wasn't on the
I know
West Coast
that.
for you to see.
And you're an Ithaca alum as well.
That's right. We're both
that's
from
bonus
Ithaca.
points.
Thanks.
It was a it was a weird time to be at that show a little bit. I feel like the ride came out while I was there. That's like the movie had just come out and then the ride came out. And then besides that, in the 4 years I was there, not too much else was.
How did they react to the
happening.
ride? Because this was another thing I was curious about.
When the ride first opened, I think people were really nice about it. I feel like the ride has aged kind of poorly. I don't know if you've been on it recently, but like when you're in there, it's like
go every weekend.
the screen looks just kind of faded. I think that Simpsons Land is great, and I think you go to.
I would go so far as to say Simpsons Land is, the Harry Potter land is incredibly impressive. Here's my overall. We're so off track. I think Harry Potter, the design of Harry Potter Land is amazing. I'm always perpetually disappointed in the one Harry Potter ride, the dark ride, where it kind of goes through. I'm just like, oh, come on, you already did Spider-Man. This should be better than Spider-Man. You got more money than that, and Spider-Man's the best ride ever.
I love Agatha Christie novels. I'm just putting it out there.
Which ride is that, Sean?
No, I thought we were just talking about things we like.
Anyway, my point is the Simpsons Land is just independent of the ride is fantastic. It is so detailed, and when you walk in, it's to a Simpsons fan. Is like, am I wrong about that? Is just so beautifully designed.
Great. It is now also 20 years old, which is like almost 20 years old, which is crazy. On top of that, it's like at least 15 to 16 years old now. But Harry, they just get big. Like Mario World is crazy. In the Harry Potter world, I feel like they're putting more and more money into the theme park, and I'm sure that they'll redo Simpsons World at one point. I told Al Jean that I remember I was driving with him, and he's like, my mom can't go on the ride. And I was like, actually, I think there's a part where you can sit and it doesn't move. And he called his mom up and told her that, and I was wrong. You can't. you can't do that.
And his mom was terribly injured. It was it burned your relationship with Al Jean.
Lucky you brought me that book, pal.
So wait, I just want to make sure. Did I get an answer to this question? What was their reaction inside the show to the idea that they were doing this ride or having gone on it? Or
Matt Warburton wrote a lot of the ride, and he's great. He's a funny dude. And then I think that they were like excited by it. And then they've had the Simpsons premiere party has taken place at Universal almost every year since then. So like, I think that that's fun for them. You know what I mean? Like they go up there and there's a huge, it's like a gigantic staff. It's Film Roman and a bunch of animators and all the writers and all the staff that are a part of it. So it's like, it's perfect. And they fill up that in all of Simpsons Land, basically.
That's
huge.
really fun.
Yeah.
The question I was going to ask before that's South Park related is South Park obviously has the famous episode, where it's Simpsons did it, correct? Or is that...
Yeah.
Or wait, am I thinking of...
No, you're right.
Guy?
I have the answer to this because I am a South Park nerd also. There's Simpsons Did It,
yes,
which was its own episode. And then there's also Cartoon Wars, which is South Park made fun of Family Guy. And
With
then
the walruses, was it? Or the
right,
manatees?
okay, that was a
The
separate issue.
manatees.
Yeah, so Simpsons Did It was a separate issue. So it was a separate episode.
Which is almost like giving them giving the Simpsons credit. It's like they've done every idea. It was kind of like it wasn't too biting, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like,
wasn't as much of an attack. I think that was probably more, if I'm to assume from a comedy writer's perspective, that's more them admitting to the shadow that the Simpsons cast and how many problems it causes them and probably other animated shows moving forward, because Simpsons has run, it seems, eternally. So I guess my question was, internally in the show, in your experience at that time, it had already been running for, almost 2 decades. Did they have that fatigue, like story fatigue themselves?
Yeah, I think that, yes, because it would be like, a part of my job was to go and get like movies and books or whatever, and they would try to, like it would be more obscure stuff that they were just. There was a DVD shop down the street that Kevin Smith bought eventually, but at the time it wasn't owned by Kevin Smith. But I'd go down there and like grab, any sort of DVD, and they would like pull specific references from it. And after table reads, so there were table read weeks where they were, I think it was Thursday, they'd read the script out loud, and then before they sent it off so on Monday it would be recorded. That was the record day, was Monday after the following Monday. So you do the table read, and then like Thursday night and Friday, they would just like rewrite it, and like it would be like, the story's not working, and then like, God forbid if Jim Brooks was there and was like, I don't like what the story is, then they would be there for so long. You know what I mean? Like both those nights they would be like, again, till like, sometimes 10 or 11 or something.
So, which of course, just for the record, is obviously on some shows that's standard. On Goldberg's, we weren't that late often, and then there's you got some people that get out at 5 on the dot, like How I Met Your Mother. I think was notoriously would get out earlier.
I think I think that was their issue with
Community, which is like they could have been there all night.
Yeah,
literally.
Well, I think their issue with it is like, this is like such a well-oiled machine.
Why are we?
Why? Why does it? But like, I think a story meant a lot to Al, and if Jim was there, it was always like, if he had an issue with the story, it was like, this is going to be like a long night, and we're going to get dinner, which I had to get him. But that was, the most interesting part of the thing was table reads and records, and I got to know a lot of those people. Pamela Hayden. This is a very nice thing. She calls me every year on the anniversary of my dad passing away. She gives me a call. I love her. She's like a lot of big sister energy. I like her a lot. But it is a weird place to work in an institution, and weirdly, Fox was like annoying with them. It's two-sided, because when I was there, I was like, man, they spend so much money on lunch. And also, like, when you're in a writer's room, as you guys know, it's like you can't really go anywhere, and you're kind of stuck there, and it's like lunch is your outlet. But their lunch orders were crazy, and it was like, covering 30 people. And I remember one day it was like $1,000 just for the restaurant, because we got restaurant and commissary, and so it was like, it was way too much money. And Fox is like, what the fuck? And they were like, we got to cut back on what you're spending on lunch. And they were always kind of like giving them shit as far as money goes. Fox sucks anyways, but in the last few years, I think they did, because they used to have consulting producers, which were like a ton of funny people. Tom Gamble, Max Pross, who were Seinfeld writers, and like Mike Reese and Mike Scully, who ran the show for a while, and Mike Reese did too. But all these guys, and then I think at one point they like got rid of the consulting producers, and then I think a lot of those guys had to be staffed, and like they made like budget cuts for a show that still, I'm sure, just pulls in. It still is just making them money, right? There's no way that it's not making money.
There's no way. They must. But even if it's not, there are certain things, there's certain shows that they hang on, a network will hang on to as a prestige show. It's just like, well, this makes us look good. This makes us look like the lights are on, like we're still making successful shows. But there's just no way based on, I'm sure that all the the cost of the senior writers and the cast and all that stuff has skyrocketed. But it's The Simpsons. There's no way that it's not still insanely profitable.
But you guys know that we've reached end stage capitalism, and the people at the top need to exploit the people below them as much as possible to rake in as much cash as they possibly can to build their escape fortresses in New Zealand or wherever the fuck. So I get it. Like, yeah, let's not spend a lot on lunch.
I got that side of it.
I should have warned you, Mitch, that Sean is trying to use this podcast. The only reason he wanted to get in is so that he could sort of unthrone capitalism.
Hey, I watched Leave the World Behind this last weekend, so I get it. I'm right on board with it. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it has a lot of these. It covers a lot of this shit.
And I said,
I'm with you, Sean.
Shouldn't you create a podcast that's more political out of the gate? And he was like, no, if it's on this pilot idea where we're talking about TV pilots, they won't see it coming. And
yeah, you got to sneak it in. You got to
a backdoor pilot.
Fahrenheit 451 or 1984. Those are just novels, but then when you look at them, there's a message there. So that's what we're doing here.
I will say this: when there was like a new contract, which I think happened twice when I was there, or maybe. Anytime I heard that there was a new contract, they'd always be like, I think these are the last 2, or, like, I think this is the last 3. They always would say that. And then it just kept, they kept going. The show kept going. And I'm happy to. I think Selman is great. And so I want it to keep going.
This is great. I love the wealth of behind the scenes information. The way that we were sort of planning to structure this podcast is to have people come on the show and talk about things that they were a fan of, or they hated, or that they had something to say about, and then have people talk about things they were associated with maybe later or down the line. So this is a real bonus episode in that we're getting this behind the scenes information.
I know
from
it's
a fan.
something I could have told you beforehand too, but I worked.
No,
there
I think you tricked us into making an effective podcasting choice.
Yeah, not cool that you sprung it on us like this. Did you see how we both froze up?
Do you want me to give you the last bit of gossip?
Please
like,
tell us everything that you want.
The last bit is that when I was there, it's when Harry Shearer stopped going in.
Uh-huh.
So Harry was tough. I feel like Harry. It is crazy also because like Harry is like now like close to 80 years old, right?
Yeah.
He's all of the voice actors have been doing the show for like 40 years almost.
Yeah.
35 years. But Harry was tough, and then there was a point where he's like, I'm no longer coming in. I don't want to be around anybody, basically.
Uh-huh. I'm surprised that was so. And the rest of the cast still comes in for table reads and everything.
They did for a long time when I was there. Is Harry stopped coming in for table reads? He was coming in, and then there were contract negotiations, and I think that's what when.
What season was that roughly?
This is 2008 or so, or you know what I mean?
I don't know Harry Shearer, but just my outside sense of Harry Shearer, I'm shocked that he hung in that long.
Yeah. I mean, the money is good, I'm sure. I think that's probably a big part of it. But
I bet as soon as he heard they were cutting lunches, he was like, not interested.
Fox, of course, Fox sucks in many ways. And I was Team Simpsons on that one.
Do you know what the source of the contentiousness was? Obviously, there's always budgetary debates, but why did Fox not seem to, from your perspective, value this incredible asset?
I think it was just a thing that's been around forever, and instead of respecting that and thinking it's this is a good thing, I think it was more like these fucking guys, they're costing us, they're eating so much lunch. We got to cut back on this lunch.
So short-sighted. It's so crazy.
I'm guessing there's also an element of the people who set everything up were gone by then.
Yeah.
So there's new people in there, and they're like, wait a minute, we're paying these people how much? No. As opposed to building something with them the way they did early days.
Mm-hmm. I think you're 100% right. I think that is what it was. It's like the people who were around when the show started or had long since retired, and
right.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to get into the episode?
Yeah, let's get into the episode.
Or do you want to talk more about rides?
You know what, Sean? 2 of the people on here, I bet, are very interested in theme park rides, and you're just dragging us down because you want to talk about obscure Shakespeare sonnets or whatever the hell Fancy Pants Conroy wants to talk about.
Her hair's like black wires. Yeah.
I will say an Agatha Christie ride would be fun.
That would be great.
I would enjoy that.
By the end of it, there's just nobody left in the car.
All right, we're going to get into it, talking about the pilot.
Can I say one last thing about rides?
Please. Yeah.
That Harry Potter ride that you brought up was the only ride ever that I couldn't fit into. I went on that ride, and they were like, it has to get to 3 levels of green, and it was at 2 levels, and 1 was red.
Right.
And you got to take a walk. And I was like, I'm a big guy, but I was like, this has never happened to me before. And I was ashamed and upset. And then I looked online, and apparently it was an issue. And when I was leaving with a dozen other big dudes, but not it wasn't crazy, but it was a good number of big dudes. And then I read online, it was oh yeah, the ride in Universal is it's a little bit sizist, is what people were saying.
I'm surprised that something from the J.K. Rowling estate would have that kind of lack of body inclusivity in any way. It's very, very odd.
That's a good point.
Did you have a moment at all when you were walking out with all these other guys where you were like, maybe we should start a gang together?
The big guy.
I think we talked about opening up a sub shop. Was the
Hey, fellas, what do you say we have wide doors on the clubhouse? Wide doors.
So you've never ridden the Harry Potter ride then?
I never rode the big one, the one that like flips you upside down and stuff.
Well, then I can only tell you're not really missing that much.
That's good. I'm happy. I also didn't like the Harry Potter universe anyways, so I was like, fuck. It made me be like, fuck this place even more.
Then you didn't miss anything. See, I was into it.
So Fox sucks and the Harry Potter stuff is not your thing. You are burning your career to the ground right now.
I know. I want to play young Hagrid or whatever the fuck.
He's got those. He doesn't care. He's got young Hagrid. Oh, let's pitch it tomorrow, guys. I'm in. Why does he have no accent? Why does he sound like he's from Boston? this masshole Hagrid.
That's what it needs. I think that's what it needs.
All right. Why don't we talk once again about The Simpsons? Sean, lead us through.
Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire is the name of the pilot, written by Mimi Pond, who wrote the pilot and then never wrote another episode of The Simpsons. She was never asked to be part of the writer's room. Like it was early on and they hadn't hired a full staff yet, and she ended up not getting hired, and she later felt that or people told her that was because there were people involved early on who didn't want to have a woman in the writer's room. So that's just an interesting note.
Wait, were they shy any female writer at this point? Do we know?
Maybe just shy one, which was her.
Right.
I don't know about the other writers in the writers' room.
Wow, that's an interesting issue.
Anyway, we come in on the parents driving on their way to a Christmas pageant. They go to see Bart and Lisa perform. They both have unique performances. Lisa. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention is that when they walk into the space, they walk past a sign for the Christmas pageant, which is both misspelled and has the local paper already having given the show 3.5 stars.
Yeah.
So it's not great. And that's one of the things I love about animation is maybe that joke was in the script, maybe not, but there's so much stuff that gets added in later of like tiny, quick jokes that you have to pay attention for, you know.
That being said, there's a handful of really fantastic jokes in this pilot. It is interesting how sort of joke light The Simpsons, which was such a rat-a-tat like killer machine of jokes, that you're sort of like, oh, what's it going to be? What's the joke going to be? And then they'll keep going and be like, oh, I guess no joke there.
Mm-hmm. They were saying at one point it was like they were like 3 jokes per page. And then it became like 3 jokes per sentence, basically. Like,
yeah, that sounds accurate.
So Lisa juggles fire and performs in the pageant. Bart, of course, You know, they're very excited to see Bart singing, but of course he's singing completely the wrong words. The Batman Smells version of Jingle Bells.
Which I do think
blew.
Like I remember singing Christmas carols that year and like going to a nursing home and singing Christmas carols because my life was also like that first season of The Simpsons apparently. But like singing the like Batmobile lost his wheels and the Joker got away.
Robin laid an egg.
Robin laid an egg. Yeah, I was like
different versions that have been floating around forever. Yeah.
I think The Simpsons only helped. You know, like really. I feel like the parody versions like really shot up after this episode. I feel like,
yeah, and I think that's an example of it's interesting to track even from the early shorts and through to this episode which characters sort of are there. Like, oh, that's that character. That is what that character became. That's what that character always was. And like Bart doing that is definitely on topic. Like that's who he is. He has I Carumba in this pilot.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things that but I feel like Homer still feels a bit off to me in this pilot.
He's still very Walter Matthau-y at this point.
Yes. I'm a big fan of Walter Matthau. I would have no problem with him being Walter Matthau. But, you know, when you're expecting Homer Simpson, it can throw you off. Skinner is there immediately.
Oh, I was going to say, it's kind of a testament to Dan Castellaneta being so good that it was like, oh, he played this character this one way, and then like Homer eventually just is like a completely different character and a different voice, basically.
I wonder if to a certain degree, just because Cartwright and Yeardley Smith that's their voices, the rhythm of the show is so fast eventually. I wonder if there was just an element of like, he had to adjust to the rhythm, and later Homer can speak faster. Whereas if it's built in your rhythm to be like, what do you mean, boy? It's just like it's going to slow everything down. So I wonder if it was just out of necessity he switched it.
I also think there's an element certainly for live actors as well, but also especially for animation voiceover stuff, where you start to go, what is making this character interesting or entertaining, and how do I accentuate that?
Right. To skip ahead, that's the other interesting thing to track. The biggest one being Homer is dumb in this pilot, but he's not a fraction as dumb as he will later become. And like even when he's checking just to sort of skip ahead, when he's at work and he's checking the dials, he misses one that says danger and is blinking, and he's but the fact that he's even up on his feet with a pad doing anything at work as opposed to just sleeping or eating is astonishing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because, I mean, like, when he learns to be Santa, too, also, like, one of the only people not getting it in the entire room. But still, later on, he's just a completely different level of dumb guy.
Yeah.
That's like, you don't know how he functions. You get how this character functions in some sort of real world.
Right.
But later on, that goes out the window.
Which is, as Sean says, like, that's classic sitcom of like, oh, this works. The writers, this rhythm works for this character. This kind of jokes works for this character. So if you have a character that's a Woody or a Coach, by the end of the run, that character's going to be like 10 times more dumb than he started, because you will have perfected it. It always works. You have to keep heightening and doing things that are unexpected. So if you're dumb,
it's actually
you're going to get dumber.
It's one of the things I have trouble with sometimes with sitcoms, where, like good sitcoms, where the thing that works for the character, by the time you get to season 6 or season 7 of the show, the character has become almost a parody of themselves instead of an actually fully realized character. Obviously that didn't happen here because that is the fun of Homer, but it is a thing.
I'm going to be very dumb by the end of this podcast. Just to
You're
play to it.
You're giving yourself a little bit too much credit there.
Am I playing it too heightened already, guys?
You're
giving ourselves nowhere to go.
So they're in the living room.
I apologize. Just to go back for 1 second, just to the Christmas show. One other person that I think we see a snippet of. I'm not certain it's the character because the characterization's so different. Is Ralph Wiggum, who
has a completely different voice.
Yes, he has a completely different voice, and once again, they're not playing him like Ralph Wiggum is maybe one of the few characters that's dumber than Homer and more out in space. But there's also a weird moment where they have like, well, these are Santa Clauses from around the world. And he's like, I am Hosashi, a Japanese priest who acts like Santa Claus. I have eyes in the back of my head. He turns around, and it's sort of a googly eyes. And there are a lot of weird moments like this where the audience of parents gasps at the googly eyes. And I was kind of like, are they supposed to be actually surprised? Like this was a good effect? And I couldn't figure out, like, well, what are the... Like, this went through a lot of different hands for them to draw it and then, edit it together and say, okay, this works. Like, what do you think they were thinking for that beat?
Yeah.
My thought is that, I mean, just with that character, it is like, we don't even know what this character is. And then I feel like his turn to being a dumb character was like instant. It's like,
right.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is just a background character that could be any character at all. That's like a student at Springfield.
For sure.
And then eventually they were like, when it came to story, they're like, we got to use this guy and he's like a little dummy. Yeah. And he's Ralph Wiggum's kid or whatever, which maybe they knew in the first episode. But yeah, that robot beat stands out because you're also like, this is Ralph delivering this performance. I don't really get like what this is and why they're even really shocked by it and why they're kind of shocked by Lisa's, which watching it, I'm like, it is dated. It wouldn't fly today if you watch it. Like you would be,
course.
You would be shocked in a different way.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, it's just that sort of thing of like, here's a stock character doing a boring factoid about Christmas. I don't even think they're thinking about the minor characters too deep. I mean, you see Milhouse later too, and Milhouse is like, I dare you to like pull Santa's beard off, Bart. You know what I mean? Like he just is like kind of like a doofus friend that's like trying to like, where Milhouse eventually is a boy who's afraid of trouble, I feel like.
That's true. Although the voice, I think, is there for Milhouse. That's another.
The voice is there. She does it a little bit. It's like a little bit different, but it is the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think there's an element in a pilot like this where, I mean, obviously The Simpsons is such a fully developed world eventually with so many characters that we know so well.
Yeah.
And I think when you're doing a pilot, it's more like we need something to serve this moment as opposed to here is a thing we already have, which will serve this moment. Here's a character we already have, you know?
Right.
So you can really start to nail that stuff down.
Yeah, it's that sort of thing of like Sherry and Terry who are like in Lisa's grade, which they do use even later on. But like there's like weird characters in this first season. Like Nelson has two little bully friends that they like never use really much ever again.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just that sort of thing of like, oh, this person like voiced Ralph Wiggum and it's something more than like another just a stock character that's just kind of a nothing, you know? And I don't know why the characters that stuck around did, because like there seems to be no real answer to any of it outside of the Simpsons family. You're just like, you don't know who any of them are yet. Like Ralph and Milhouse, I guess have speaking roles is the only difference.
Well, I wonder if it's just sort of the dynamics of the show. So many characters are introduced in this pilot that then later stuck, which is shocking. To me, it's shocking on a couple of different levels. One, it's shocking on a level of, from a pilot perspective, I would have thought that they would have demanded, oh, you have all these characters, you have, you know, Barney, but let's hear more about Barney. Let's whatever. And it's like, no, Barney comes in, he's the drunk, they establish the character, and then they move on. And then they bring it back, you know, later in the show. But it's like, you don't need any more information about Barney. And the characters that you don't get more information about, you just move on from. And I think over time, they keep on with that pattern, using people when it serves them comedically. And like with Milhouse, I think it's like, at a certain point, it's like, well, Bart, I would guess, Bart is the bad boy. He's the mischief maker. So we can't have Milhouse just be coming in as another mischief maker all the time. So what if we break the other way with him? I think is the way those decisions happen.
But it is strange to me that who they decided to, and maybe it's just that sort of thing of like, this animation design looks more interesting. You know what I mean?
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah. Like who do we have that we can use, and can we do more with that design? Because that's a big deal to design a character like that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's hard to come up with that. I mean, obviously they did it for years and years and they came up with a million different looks, but it's not simple to just go, well, let's make it a different thing, you know?
Yeah. That's wild. They admit, you know, when like I've heard them talking about like background characters, like that one looks like shit. There are like plenty of them that look horrible and are like they're wearing a shirt that's the same as their skin tone, and it's like they look horrible. But yeah, I like Milhouse early on. I know Milhouse started in a Butterfingers commercial. That's how Pamela got the role. It was a Butterfingers commercial with Bart, and I think before the show came out, and then she voiced it on the show. So
that's interesting. He started in the butter, because I remember the Butterfinger commercial, and that's where that character started. That's amazing.
I believe so, but he talks in the pilot. But I just watched, Pamela made a documentary, and she talked about that's how she got the job, was through this Butterfingers commercial. So
she was a commercial actor, and then
I think she did voiceover, and she was an actress and everything. Yeah.
To be gauche, I wonder if you're like that level of character in The Simpsons, and I assume she does other characters in The Simpsons, after 35 seasons, like you can't keep escalating everybody's paychecks. Like you got to stick to this. So I wonder what the paycheck is on that one.
There's crazy things just watching the pilot and seeing Lorena Adamson's name come up, and that's the person who hired me there. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, well, she was here on the pilot.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's so many other people, you know, Al Jean and Mike Reese were, I think, there in the first year, and so many of these people that still work at the show, which is crazy.
Did you ever get to do a voice, Mike?
I did. I was a Boston guy. When Selman wrote a great Boston episode, I was like a guy in a bar with Homer. And like I was like, "What's up, Homer?" Like that was kind of
That's fantastic.
It was great, yeah. And
You
then Selman,
really, as a complete non-entity, Mike, you have lived such a fantastic. Being in the Forever War, going to be an action hero. You did a voice on The Simpsons. This is
I got
fantastic.
lucky. Selman, I mean, I had worked there for 4 years, and I think assistants maybe come and go quicker than that usually, but I was a good chunk of time there with the guys who have, a lot of them who are still there and are great. And Selman, he drew Weiger and I, our likeness into an episode. There was like a podcast episode where Kent Brockman is like, yeah, there's this scene where there's all podcasters and Nick and I are in it, which is an honor.
Did Nick get to do his voice?
No, we didn't speak in that one.
Oh,
as ourselves, we didn't speak, but it was cool.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. I love that place. I mean, like it is crazy. And I feel like everyone who works there, it's like that, you know, you bond over the fact that you worked there. And you know, I was there in the seasons that weren't transformative for the world or whatever, but it still was a great place to work. And there's so many funny people and talented people that work there.
Well, it's an institution. You're part of something that is gigantic. You know?
Yeah, I loved it. I don't even know if they do the table reads anymore. And I don't know if you guys would ever want to go to one, but they are like,
I don't think Sean would. Sean wouldn't.
I certainly don't want to go to the same one Andy is at.
All we do when we're in an important business situation together is try and tear each other down. In our heads, that makes us more powerful.
Why did you take the potato chips from the table? Put them back.
Stop criticizing me in front of these bigwigs.
They can hear you, and none of them are wearing wigs except that guy.
I know which one you mean. It is even going in, like, because I would do the table reads and you and the other PA, I was a writer's PA, you and the other PA would switch off between who would like be in the room for the table read. And I was a fan of the show, so I always loved being in there for the table reads. And it was like, it was always great to just see them like read the script out loud and perform it. It was always funny, you know, like they always did such a great job.
Yeah.
Did Ewan enjoy being in the room for the table reads?
Did who?
Ewan? Yeah.
I don't get this joke either. Let's see where it goes.
No, it's not going anywhere.
Ewan was tricky in the table reads. He seemed, I think the table reads were early. You know how Ewan was in the morning. He's not a morning guy, so he would be upset.
This is so generous of you, Mitch. I really appreciate it. Do you want to give us an overview on that one, Conroy?
I just misheard something. What was the other PA's name?
Oh, the other PA. There was a couple. Eliza Hooper, who was great, who was a friend of mine, and there was one before who I didn't get along with. Some Simpsons.
So
drama.
you were just saying you and the other PA.
Yeah.
Is this the kind of
Ewan, the other PA?
Is this the kind of crackerjack podcasting you're used to?
It's funnier than me and Nick are just boringly talk about like the fries were too salty. The other PA actually almost. I'll give some dirt on myself.
Oh, this is exciting.
I almost got fired from the show because I worked with another PA and she did not, like right out the gate, did not like me. And I was like, what is this person's deal? I think maybe she thought it was like a competitive environment, even though she didn't watch the show at all. But when she got there, a very strange person. And so there was like the table reads would come out and there's prep for the table reads. You have to mail the script to all the actors and highlight all the lines.
And that really dates the time.
Yeah. You highlight all the, I mean, you're right. I doubt that. Maybe some of them still do get hard
I guess,
copies.
yeah. Sometimes people still deliver.
There was all this stuff you had to do, and I was doing all of it. And then I was like, when the script comes out, I'm going to bring the script to the script office to get it like copied. And I was going to say to her, like, hey, can you start highlighting lines? Because she hadn't done anything. Mm-hmm. And then the script came out and she started printing the script on the Xerox. And I was like, because she was going to disappear for like an hour. I knew what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And she got the script and I was like, hey, I'm going to bring the script to the script department. And she like didn't pay attention to me. And she was like intentionally not saying anything. It was crazy. And then she got in the cart and I was like, hey, and I stood in front of the cart. I was like, hey, we have to highlight the script, and I did everything else. And then she was like, fuck you, get the fuck out of the way. Started swearing at me, and I was like, oh, man. And then I got a call from my boss, who's Lorena Adamson, and Lorena is like, she was like, blank just told me that you started swearing at her and telling her and I was like, I didn't swear at her. And she's like, I'm going to have to fire you. I was like, I didn't swear at her. I swear to God. And then a Simpsons writer who has also since passed away went into her office and was like, I saw the whole thing. She was swearing at Mike, and Mike looked like he was going to cry. Which Lorena also was happy to say to me. And then she said to her, she was like,
this story is her story isn't right. He wasn't being aggressive. He was being completely emasculated.
I was completely emasculated, and then they said to her, like, either I have to fire you or you have to resign, and she quit. So that was the end of which was crazy. It was a crazy thing. Look, I'm hard to work with. I know that, but I don't think I'm
that
that
lady
hard to
became
work with.
Shonda Rhimes.
Sorry for my boring. This is a boring.
No, I love it.
PA
I love
drama,
all the inside
but
scoop. No, I'm so happy that we got all these actual Simpsons stories. I thought it was just
Mark Wilmore, Larry Wilmore's brother, was passed away. Great guy. He was the one who stood up for me.
that's so nice.
It's also like in the TV writer world, I have never worked as a PA or any of that kind of stuff, and I've always dealt with those people, but I also enjoy hearing about all the drama that goes on among everybody, because obviously there's drama among the writers too, but it's just funny that at every level there's all kinds of stuff that goes on.
It's
It's
business.
It's stressful. I mean, like, it is stressful, and I feel like it becomes stressful just because, like, you want to leave. And that's probably the same thing with the writers too. It's like, I want to get out of here, even though it is in a way a dream job. You know what I mean? Like, I did love doing it too. So
yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like you're trapped in this environment where there's always sort of a superior. The superior's under the pressure on their own. There's all this pressure from the outside to deliver this product. You each have your own wants, as clearly that PA did, of like what I want out of this situation, where I want to go. And you feel like you're jockeying with other people, but also these people are your collaborators, and you have to, play nice with everybody and help. It's a lot of dynamics at once.
And there's also an element, I think, of everybody being like, if they would only do it the way that I think they should do it, all of this would work so much better.
100%, which I should give, like, I was probably as guilty of that as she was, I'm sure. But it is a person who just, like, did not like talking to me, and I didn't like talking to them either. But I think this is a difference, is like when we were there, it was a well-oiled machine, like I said, and there is, like, you see old photos of when Conan worked there or whatever, and you're like, oh, it looks like they were having more fun, and they were having drinks and hanging out late and stuff like that, which I think kind of
that's how I felt even when I worked at Conan.
Yeah.
It's like, nah, when was it fun?
Maybe it just is never fun. Maybe that's the lesson.
I think there's a condition of basically like, oh, but before, that's when it was great.
Yeah.
Shall we get back into the story itself?
So we're in the living room, and Marge is writing her Christmas letter, and everybody is saying what they want for Christmas. Lisa wants a pony. Bart wants a tattoo.
And even in that, I would say those are the first two, like, legitimate jokes, I would say, of, like, Marge basically saying, Lisa, you've asked for a pony for 3 years. I've told you it can't fit into Santa's sleigh. Can't you take a hint? They're like, she's playing the mythology of Santa's sleigh, and is just basically like, we're on the same page here. Can you just drop this?
There's a great joke there too of when she's like reading the note aloud, and she's like, and Bart, well, we love Bart. There's nothing really good to say about Bart.
Right. Can't think of a good thing. Yeah. And then Bart asking for the tattoo is, like, to me, of the characters, seems very on game. Lisa and Bart seem to me to be the most, like, nailed down, like, what they will always be personalities.
Bart does get dumber too, I feel like. I mean, he is just like a little troublemaker here, but him and Homer, he like almost starts to match Homer a little bit in some ways.
I think you're right. Yeah.
So Marge's sister calls, and they're going to come over for Christmas Eve. So that's definitely one thing that's going to happen later in the episode. They go outside to see that Homer has put lights on the house, and of course he has not done a particularly good job, especially compared to their next door neighbor Flanders, who has done an amazing job.
And is, again, that's a character that's he's obviously they haven't. That's a fraction of what Flanders will become. But I was impressed that even in a pilot, the game of Flanders being this perfect neighbor that immediately causes jealousy and antagonism from Homer, as a side character, is pretty impressive. There's so many sure-footed moves in this pilot establishing the world, which of course, it makes sense. I don't know if it's like when you did this, we did such a good job on this, it's going to last 35 seasons. But it's very impressive in many ways.
Yeah.
So they're going to go Christmas shopping. Marge gives Homer the money jar from her hair. That's where she hides it. And they go to the mall. And then we see Bart at the tattoo parlor as he fantasizes about getting a mother tattoo and how his mother will be so happy that he has this tattoo. The guy asks him how old he is.
Yeah, this is a good bit.
Yeah, and he says he's old enough, and the guy just says, "Get in the chair."
Yeah.
So he's gonna do
21, sir. Get in the chair.
And then we go to Homer's workplace, and this is the first time we don't even see him, but it's the first time we hear Mr. Burns, who tells them they won't be getting their Christmas bonus this year.
I think we do see him, actually. I think we briefly.
Oh, do we?
Yeah. And
I wasn't watching it. I actually listened to the whole thing.
Sean, that's terrible. It's not very responsible. You're supposed to be breaking down the pilot. This is an animation pilot.
I read the Cliff Notes.
Yeah, and
but whatever the case, he says they're not getting the Christmas bonus, so it's a problem.
Which is, again, that's on game, obviously, for Mr. Burns. But to me, that's like for the crazy, heightened, spoiler alert, character that later blots out the sun.
Yeah.
Level supervillain. No Christmas bonus. Is very.
His voice is a little bit different too.
Yes.
It's like it's kind of like more just old Manny or something. Like, I mean, it still sounds like Mr. Burns a little bit, but he really goes into like the evil villain voice later on, I feel like.
Yeah.
So Homer figures out that he's not getting his Christmas bonus, but at least they still have the money jar, so it's okay.
Right.
They'll be able to get people stuff for Christmas. Then we go back to the mall, and Marge has realized that Bart is missing, finds him as he's getting a tattoo on his arm. The guy has gotten as far as writing moth. They go to see somebody who says the tattoo can be removed, but it must be paid in cash. And Marge realizes she has to pay all the money in the money jar. And she's happy that Homer will get his Christmas bonus because at least they'll still be able to have Christmas. So we have sort of a reverse gift of the Magi going on here where neither of them is going to have the thing that the other one most wants.
I really like the noises that the laser machine makes. It like does remind me kind of later Simpsons because it is like it's kind of like a big dumb joke that he's getting zapped by like a James Bond type laser that's like making a very Simpsons like humming noise that like they use forever.
And that's of course the first time he says "ay caramba." Although I wonder if that predated in the shorts. I wonder how many. And that's another thing that they obviously had the jump on the even going into this episode is like, you had a test run to kind of get a feel for what was working originally with all these little shorts.
Yeah.
So then we come back home and we find out that they both find out that the other one has lost all their money, so they're going to have to cancel Christmas. But instead of telling Marge that he doesn't have the Christmas bonus coming, Homer says, "I'm going to do the Christmas shopping this year." So now he has to figure out how to get Christmas presents for everybody.
Homer is so sweet in this episode. It is like it's not his fault. He's in this predicament.
Yeah.
And he's like, doesn't want to let his family down. He's like a really sweet man.
This is the thing
sad.
that I guess we kind of already addressed it a little bit, but it is very interesting that I think even compared to most Simpsons episodes from my memory, even in the first season, that it's just so, the whole episode is sort of the underpinnings are so sweet. And even the act of Homer outside the house, just sad. There's no joke. It's just like, oh, I'm going to let my family down sadness. And that's it. And you're going to commercial. And I'm like, this is crazy that it's this treacly and sweet. And so I guess my question to you guys, from the perspective of just a pilot, like you're launching the show, do you think this pilot was more effective as a launching point for The Simpsons because it was so much sweeter, to the point of maybe too sweet, than the later episodes?
Right. He says in this scene, "I love you, I don't deserve you." And I do think because everybody is so much more heightened in terms of their weirdness later on, it's important to establish those relationships early. So yeah, I do think it's important in the pilot, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think it sets the tone of, I think, as crazy and silly as The Simpsons got, and I mean, this is, I think, why story is so important to them. Like, underneath all of it, it is still like, Homer is still like a sweet guy, and it is like this family that has love for each other. So I think that what it evolved to obviously is different, but I do think it's important that it started that way.
Yeah, and I think if you go back to, as we were discussing, the pilot that it was tossed, it did not have that tone in any way, and if anything, it had the reverse. So this really does set you up to go much farther with the characters comedically, because you have that buy that, like, well, they love each other.
Yeah.
So Homer's shopping. He's getting the cheapest things he can find. He runs into Flanders, who is heavily loaded with gifts. They knock each other over. Flanders isn't sure which ones are his and which ones are Homer's. And of course, they're all his. So we see all that.
Good
Homer,
bit.
Yeah, it's funny. Homer goes to Moe's to drown his sorrows, which is where he learns that Barney is working as a mall Santa, and they will hire basically anybody to do.
And I think this is where I really started to get astounded, not having seen this pilot in a long time, with how much of the world is in place right in this first pilot. Like that Barney is exactly what Barney will become. Moe is not what Moe will become, other than the voice and the way he's drawn.
It is funny what he is at this point. He's like, "Hi, Homer." He is just like a helpful bartender, man.
A maniac loser. But the fact that it's even set up, it's like intuitively they were like, oh, we need a place that's outside the home. It probably would be he'd be a drinker. Well, you got to have the drunk. All right, you have the bartender. It's just like they're making logical, organic choices, and as a result, you're building the building blocks for what you will need story-wise for 35 seasons. It's crazy to think of building a pilot to have that much room to grow and succeed.
I was gonna say they're smart. They were smart guys, and I'm like, a lot of them still working over there. They are smart guys. It's crazy.
I mean, this is why my pilot, one guy trapped in a room, just didn't seem to have legs.
It didn't even have dialogue. It was very difficult.
And the network kept pushing me. I don't know how I sold it, but the network kept pushing me. Hey, can you at least give him a phone or some kind of screen where you can talk to me? And I said, no, that undermines the concept.
He even lived next door to a bar, but it was an abandoned bar that nobody ever went to or lived in.
He would walk in, and then it would be empty, and he would sort of step on a nail or something, whatever happened that week, and then he would go back in and just tend to his wound.
Silently yell, no noise coming out of his mouth.
That's right, Harold Lloyd style.
I love Harold Lloyd. So Homer interviews and gets put in the training program to be a Santa Claus.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a fun scene. He has to learn how to say ho ho ho.
Yeah, and he's very dumb
here.
here.
Reindeer. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what he really fails at, right, Sean? Is he gets all the
Nixon,
reindeers names.
Comet, Cupid, and Donna Dixon. He says
Donna Dixon is the last reindeer. Now let me ask you this, because I am not nearly as familiar with The Simpsons. Certainly not The Simpsons ride, but also The Simpsons show as you guys are. I mean, I've certainly watched it time after time over the years, but I am not. I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. Does the teacher of the Santa Claus workshop ever come back?
That guy maybe does come back in some way. I'm not sure if I just have watched the pilot so many times.
Right.
I'm like,
I'm only asking because as I was watching it, it felt very inorganic to me as opposed to all the other characters we were seeing, where it was like, let's just have Phil do his funny voice, the German accent that he does, and make that guy the guy who's running the workshop, as opposed to here's a purpose and a reason and a fun thing about this character.
right.
Which I always enjoy seeing in a pilot, where it's like, is this a big deal or is it not a big deal?
I've found this character on the Simpsons wiki.
Yeah.
And he is
He's the biggest character on the show.
He's the biggest character on the show.
He's in the family. Is he a Simpson?
He's called the Hypnotist, and so he's a hypnotist and a mall Santa trainer. This lists just 2 episodes, and so he is in the Homer at the Bat episode. Apparently, he's also, which I'm trying to think of what the bit is, and I feel like I should know it, but
Probably involves hypnotism, right?
I think oh yes, he's hypnotizing Roger Clemens into thinking he's a chicken. Into thinking he's a chicken. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, I do remember that. Yeah, it's interesting. So it's just sort of they threw him in, and then they're like, "Hey, let's bring back." Probably, I would guess it's more. Well, maybe the accent, and then the character design. But it is interesting that like I hear what Sean's saying that like later in The Simpsons they'll sort of have a side trip, some plot side trip, and they'll go like, well, let's make this, Professor Frink, the Jerry Lewis scientist, or let's make this Dr. Nick, or whatever. It'll just like everything will stop because then that's a different bit that they're playing, and that's
He's
what
a funny
this does
character.
kind of feel like. Yeah,
I kind of enjoyed him. He should be around more often. I feel like it.
I agree. You feel like they haven't used him enough in these 35 seasons?
I don't think so.
You know who was really pushing for him to be used a lot was the PA who you got fired. So that's why.
That's not. I did not get her fired. Also, I will say, Sean, if you had only seen The Simpsons, I want to see someone who's has seen The Simpsons pilot, and then the second thing they see is the ride. It would be interesting to see just how insanely different the ride is. And
Okay, so then we go back to the house, and the sisters are there. Marge's sisters are there, and they are very negative about what's going on and where Homer is and why he's not there. They're upset that there's no tree. Meanwhile, Homer has made his way out of town and is chopping down a tree to bring back to the house.
it
He
is
was
the
chased
bit.
by dogs and shotguns.
The bit basically similar to National Lampoon's Vacation, which I guess did it after this. It's a very similar,
interesting.
a very similar bit, right?
Yeah,
it's like they go and
it's
chop
true.
down a tree.
And there's like an animal in it, right?
Yeah, there's a squirrel in it later
Yeah,
that attacks Julia Louise-Dreyfus, I believe,
yeah.
which I feel like is probably a thing that has been done by a lot of places of chopping down a nearby
is.
tree.
But I'm someone who always believes that there's just like parallel thinking is certainly the argument for most things like this that happen. But if the timeline is such, or if you can kind of track like, well, and I usually look at this at Star Trek because those are the references that I'm like, oh, I see that, and that tracks back to this was in this movie. So either Star Trek is stealing from the movie or the movie is stealing from Star Trek. And this is something that feels like the person who wrote National Lampoon's Vacation, is it Christmas Vacation, would have seen this episode of The Simpsons.
Sure, yeah, and probably was watching Christmas episodes and specials.
Right.
I'm sure.
Yeah, that's an even more on point.
A lot of people are going to complain that we're stealing from Doughboys by just having Mitch here. So
That's true. And also we have that
Gotta be ready
segment
for
at
those
the end
emails.
where we talk
Yeah.
about what we've ordered. The other thing that struck me about the tree bit is that I was thinking like they started to lean into kind of the Peanuts end result of going for a Christmas tree, which is that it's this pathetic tree. And I was like, oh, they're not going to do exactly the same thing. And then they did a different thing that I think is a very clever spin, which is it's a stolen tree.
Yeah, and a tree, the birdhouse
With the
in the tree is
birdhouse
funny.
in it is really funny.
So then we see Homer working as a Santa. He is imparting lessons to the children who ask him for things for Christmas, and he's starving. He eats one of the kids' donuts because he hasn't had any food. So that's, we're starting to get who he is as a character. Bart and his friends are watching from above, and one of the friends dares him to yank Homer's beard.
Early Millhouse is the early Millhouse.
That's where it's sort of interesting that it's not who he became.
And then we get to the death knell of culture, which is Bart says when he goes to Homer, he says, "I'm Bart Simpson. Who the hell are you?"
That's the line.
So that's going to have
And so the
reverberations.
objection of America was you're teaching children to be disrespectful, I'm assuming?
This was before we had presidential candidates who stood up giving campaign speeches going, "Fuck that bullshit," so it was still a time when there was sort of decorum and respect and yes, all that kind of stuff.
And George H.W. Bush famously said, like, I want people to stop being more like less like the Simpsons and more like the Waltons, or right? Wasn't there? He said some bullshit like that.
I don't remember that, but that totally makes sense.
He said some line about like the families being less like the Simpsons, and I think it was maybe the Waltons. It was some shitty TV
it seems
show.
Like that's
family.
what it is. More like the Waltons and less like the Simpsons. It's interesting. Yeah. Candidates or presidents never learn the lesson of like, don't use TV as your reference point. You're gonna lose. Like it's bad for you. It's just like,
and then like he was going up against the very cool
sax playing.
Yeah. Was Arsenio on Fox? No, right? It was. I don't think it was. But that's like because Bill Clinton was on Arsenio Hall's, right? He came on Arsenio Hall. I remember that. It felt like there was a huge culture shift that honestly kind of started with The Simpsons. But my parents were never. They were fine with me watching it. Married with Children. Which
he was on Fox, by the way.
It was. Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Shit. So it was all Fox.
Yeah.
Married with Children, which was on after The Simpsons. My mom never liked me watching, especially when I was younger. You know, she was like, that was one step over the line.
Right. And I think probably the Simpsons, as with South Park, the reason it kind of caused a furor always is like, you know, it's animation, so that's more likely to pervert and distort the brain of youngsters.
Yeah.
Well, everybody thinks animation is just for kids by default, you know, and there is such a thing as adult animation. Not that The Simpsons is that; it sort of bridges the generations.
We
but
get it. You wrote for Mr. Pickles.
That's adult animation. If you enjoy violence, gore, beheadings, spines being ripped out.
As many people.
No, it used to irritate me when I would say this is what the show is, and people would be like, "Oh, so you're writing a children's show?" And I was like, "Take a look. It's not for children." So he pulls off and recognizes Homer and realizes that there's something going on here, and Homer has to explain to him that he needs to do this to get the money. And Bart says, "You must really love us to have sunk so low."
It's kind
of sweet.
It's incredibly, I mean, it's sweet to a shocking degree. And I guess that's my question to you as both a Simpsons insider and a longtime fan. Do you feel, Mitch, like that moment is indicative of there was always sort of a moment mostly between Homer and Marge. There's sort of some sweet resolution. Do you feel like that moment is something that we will see in great amounts later on? Because it's like Bart just like is touched.
Yeah.
Supports his father, and that's it.
Yeah, I feel like, you know, in later seasons, that sweetness does exist between Homer and Bart, which, again, this is like they're establishing their relationship here. But obviously Bart later on will do stuff that makes Homer want to kill him, especially as the show goes on. But even in the first season, I feel like there's stuff that Bart does that, like, drives him. But Bart is, like, a sweet kid at this point, and kind of always is. He just kind of turns into more of, like, they lean into his being a little rebel asshole.
Right.
As time goes on. But here it's just he is just being like a sweet, nice kid.
Right.
Although I would argue that him saying you must really love us to have sunk so low, he is still undercutting the sweetness of it by disparaging what Homer is doing, you know?
Yeah, that's
a little
fair.
shit stirring.
Yeah.
Like he's saying something nice and then going, by the way, you're embarrassing us, basically.
By the way, Sean, I want to quickly say,
mm-hmm.
I don't know if any animation for children is good. I don't think there's any, like, if it's specifically designed for children, I feel like it's probably bad, right? Like, all animation should be for anyone that can
for
watch
all
it, right?
audiences.
Like, well, no, it shouldn't be. That's not true, because I think there's some that should be specifically for adults. But I feel like stuff that's like specifically for children sucks, right? I can't think of.
Well, I mean, it's not for you, so how do you know if
true.
it sucks?
That's a good point. But even like My Neighbor Totoro or Totoro, I'm like, that is like maybe feels more like a children's movie, but that's for everyone, right? Like they're like
true. It's also like to your point about the Miyazaki property. It's written with this complexity so that it appeals to everyone, and it's has these deep, complex adult themes that a child can understand on an intuitive level, and so that's why it's just sort of the target. And I think comedically, the target, I think on The Simpsons, and I think it hit it, is just like the characters became so strong and their delivery system for jokes became so honed after a while that just by the rhythm of jokes, even if you didn't know what the references were, you would understand that it was funny and it was high level comedy. And I think that's that magical kind of crossover point between children,
Right.
and which is what the Muppets were also.
Oh yeah, love those Muppets.
I guess just my main point is I wrote for Mr. Pickles.
Yeah, we get it. We get it.
So Homer and Bart go to get Homer's check. It's for $13 because they took out for Santa training sessions, all the things.
And this
So
is,
now
by the way,
Homer's-
this is Nancy Cartwright as the person giving him the check again. And I wonder, because I feel like there was a few other moments like that, if not a lot, in that first season where it's so obvious. Because Nancy Cartwright has one of the most distinct voices in television history. That is just like, no, you can't do the Hank Azaria thing. Like you have to stay Bart because it's too obvious. And every once in a while she'll pop up as another character and early on, and then I think they finally stopped just to have her do Bart.
Yeah, she has like her like three. She sticks to her like big, which I think is Bart
who are the
and
other ones?
Nelson.
Uh-huh,
she does
right.
Nelson. I used to highlight these, so I used to know all of them. And she does Ralph Wiggum.
Oh, does
That's-
she? See, I did not give her credit. Ralph Wiggum is a very different character.
Yeah,
Does she do the hypnotist Santa Claus trainer?
It's your
I'm not sure,
favorite
but I'm gonna
character.
say yeah. I'm gonna guess yes.
Guys, should we start working on that spinoff? We would like to spin off the Simpsons' least beloved character.
Sometimes you got to take a risk. This is Hollywood.
Of
Nobody
course.
knows anything.
No, you do the thing that nobody's thinking of.
Mm-hmm. So again, Homer gets a brainstorm from what Barney is doing. Barney is going to gamble at the dog track, and Homer thinks that's a great idea. He can bet his $13. So him and Bart set off to bet some money and win some money. And I love the meta idea here of Bart saying, if TV has taught me anything, it's that miracles always happen to poor kids at Christmas, which is a nice moment.
And what I also like is that and I remember watching this, and this is the thing that really started to grab me. Now, obviously, every show is just a parade of references, but to make references like that, because I remember early on in my career, I would put references that weren't even like deep cut references. They were just what I perceived to be funny references to current television, and people would shoot them down. And like Simpsons was one of the people that was one of the properties that was the first people that advanced it to Mitch's story of like what you had to go and get. What was it, magazines? What was the thing you got that had references?
DVDs. It was back in the
DVDs,
day
right.
of DVD shops.
Yes. So in that moment, he like rattles off the other Christmas episodes, cartoon Christmas episodes, Peanuts and Smurfs and all these ones. Like, it's one thing I've learned from TV. It's that a miracle will always happen that will save people. Let's take this chance. And I love that it's woven in to be a meta commentary on how The Simpsons is going to be different.
And talking about Homer's character becoming something different, this is a moment where Homer doesn't understand the Tiny Tim reference, which to me is like, I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like that's just something that every person alive knows what that is. So the fact that he doesn't is
It's pretty dumb.
Yeah, pretty dumb in that moment.
So you're saying he did. See, I was arguing that maybe he didn't start that dumb. You're saying he started more dumb.
No, I'm just saying in that particular moment, there was a
Right.
flash of how dumb
Yeah.
he would eventually become.
Right,
I think, it's that thing of like still trying to figure out what works
How
and what
dumb
doesn't
to
work
make
for
him,
the
sure.
character.
Yeah.
Also on the way, like when they're going to this racetrack, Homer's like, I can't believe I'm doing this. And you're like, why?
This is what you would do.
That
Yeah.
is what you would do.
Go to the dog track again this week?
So Barney tells him to bet on Whirlwind, but they see a dog named Santa's Little Helper, whose odds are 99-1. So this is going to be a big payday for Homer when he wins, and he puts everything on it, and of course loses, unfortunately.
The dog coming up, it doesn't even finish the race, and they're waiting for it to finish it. It's a funny bit of
I
just
love
like,
that moment.
we're going to wait
Yeah.
until it finishes. It's
Yeah.
like, screw it.
Yeah, I'll forget it. Yeah, that's that. I wrote that down. That's a great moment.
It's such a funny, like, I don't know, there's something to me about that that works every time when you in animation when something gets very still and you just see the character's eyes blinking and they're just waiting for something.
Yeah.
And
it's because it's such a definitive. It's just sort of such a clear comedic choice because in animation you make a choice about what moves and doesn't move in every moment. The other line I loved that was the callback that really stuck with me over time was Bart saying, "It doesn't seem possible, but I guess TV has betrayed me," which to me is the kind of meta joke that I think that became bedrock for this show. That became the commentary on exactly what's going on in a meta way. That became what the show did better than anybody.
I just want to give a shout out to I'll Quit It when they keep touching Bart's tattoo. And of course, Ho Ho Do as they worked Do into that, which I guess already at this point they kind of knew that was a Homer catchphrase. But there's a couple lines at the end here that are great, and when we get to it, because the ending is they do a great job.
Just to go back to the I'll Quit It thing, what I think is so funny about that is that's such a specific style of like going like 2 extra repetitions of the thing.
Yeah.
And how annoying that is. And that is just funny in and of itself every time.
It goes Lisa twice, then the third one of just touching his wound, and then the third one is Maggie touching it. And so you think you're done, and then Homer comes in and points at it. What's that? I'll quit it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Okay, so we come out and Barney did put his money on Whirlwind and won, so he has a new girlfriend, which is what happens when you get a little bit of money. That definitely is a thing.
Barney and Daria, I believe.
Daria,
like, who the fuck is Daria?
Yeah. Daria was later at the MTV show, right?
Right. That's what I assumed. Yeah, I assumed it was just a coincidence, not a reference.
Yeah, no, that was 10 years later. Way off. All of my past has become a blur.
Well, no, I think the story is that the people who created Daria were like, we need to name this character after the girlfriend in the pilot of Simpsons. Who never
this one I
showed
think is
up
parallel
again.
thinking, Sean. This one I'm not sticking to my guns on.
I mean, he clearly saw the pilot and was like, oh, let's use that name.
Also, let's use this idea where they steal a Christmas tree and then there's an animal inside.
So they see Sam as a little helper being evicted into the night by his owner, trainer, whatever.
A Dan Castellaneta voice that's like is too similar to Homer's here.
I agree.
The trainer,
Right.
Yeah.
And then the dog comes to them, and all of a sudden they have something to bring home for Christmas.
Which is that is a side note, is a very interesting phenomena of, because I think Hank Azaria does another character, I don't remember which, does another character voice in this that feels too similar to Mo. And I do wonder if it's like, then they watch the pilot and like, oh, I didn't go far enough. That like, did they learn that themselves? Were they directed into that? Was like,
and I wonder if there's like a lot of like, oh, don't have like a random one-off character talking to Mo, or you know what I mean? Like, like there's some lessons learned there too, or whatever.
Yeah,
it is fascinating because it does feel like that, like you were saying with Nancy Cartwright, and then Homer happens here too, where it's like they're in like the same scene together. You know, like this feels weird for whatever reason. Just as two, they sound too like. There's just a great line there where Homer says, "He's a loser. He's pathetic. He's a Simpson." I thought that was sweet,
and it's both sweet and a good sort of joke. And then at the very end, they also throw Grandpa in there. Grandpa Simpson is in there, already asleep, which is it's a first thought joke, but it's like they find ways to heighten it. That becomes the bedrock of his character. And the last the joke that I noted down was when they get the dog and they're all happy. His Bart just throws off, and if he runs away, he'll be easy to catch. That's just a funny.
I wrote that down. That's a great line.
Just a funny reference to him just losing this race.
The dog being slow.
Yeah, and then we're out of the episode.
Which is crazy enough, a Santa's Little Helper origin story, but also a Snowball too, or both of the Simpsons pets kind of have origin stories in this pilot episode because they talk about how Snowball 1 died the previous year or whatever. Yeah,
right. So, Mitch, this is a good thing to confer with you about. Sean and I have we've had different variations on the episodes we've recorded thus far, and we've sort of struggled a little bit on, well, should we just do a ranking system and kind of like, well, is that demeaning to the form and or whatever? And then you had said you had a ranking system for your.
We put it in first class or which also wasn't. I mean, like when we broke it down to it was like, what is this out of like 5 stars? Basically, it's what I guess like first class is like 5 stars or whatever, and then for ones we really liked, we were like, it's in the cockpit or something. But I don't know how. It was very
you get
stupid.
to fly the plane. You're the pilot.
Yeah, you get to fly the plane if it's that good. But I don't know. You know, people give movies star ratings. I love this pilot, and I think that the show becomes very different. But it's probably a nostalgia thing for me. But like you were saying, there's so much stuff that's established in this first half hour that sticks around for 35 years that it's so crazy to me. And it is, for its time, I think it's really funny and it's really sweet. And the story is kind of simple, but it's nice. It's a nice story. So for me, it's like, it's not Cheers level, but it's like, a 4 or 4.5 or something like that for me is where I would put it.
4.5 first classes? That seems
4.5
very high.
cockpits.
Oh,
So-
4.5 cockpits.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would agree with you. It's sort of interesting judging this one because usually the ones we've sort of covered thus far kind of even either break in the direction of this is insane, this is terrible, this is kind of what it became, like the Freaks and Geeks thing, because Freaks and Geeks obviously only didn't finish the first season. It's kind of is what it's going to be in the first episode, and there's so many amazing turns. This is a really fascinating thing in that it is a crude version of what it would later become, but there's so much world building in such an impressive way. So it's kind of like, if we have that rating system, then it's like, well, you can't dispute that they were successful. They went 35 seasons. I also can say it was successful for me because I saw it, and I think I might have been because this is often the case with me, as a cynical, aspiring, person who wanted to write and make either TV or film. I probably was like, this isn't cynical enough. They're pretending it's cynical, but it's not cynical enough. But there were enough jokes in it that I was like, this is really funny and this is great, and it held me. So I have to say it was successful as a pilot, and it overwhelmed the flaws.
Yeah, I definitely didn't watch it at the time. I was teaching junior high school at the time, so there was a lot of like buzz around. We weren't supposed to let the kids talk about it or say cowabunga, and I just found that hilarious because I was like, how does that even? Who cares,
Right.
And so I never watched it until much, much later. But I watched it again today, or at least I listened to it. I didn't actually look at it. And I had forgotten how sweet it was. Like I found the ending very touching in a way, which maybe if I was younger, I would be like, oh, come on. But now I'm like, the world is a shithole. So, let's have some good things where things work out. And especially as a Christmas episode, it's like they're overcoming adversity and finding love for the whole family. So as far as like, is it first class? Is it second class? Is it business class? Is it coach? Is it the cockpit? Is it the luggage rack underneath the plane? I'm going to give it the whole plane. It's the entire thing.
You're right. It's shitty and great all at the same time. That kind of is perfect breakdown.
I think that's fair.
I'll give it the whole plane too. Why not? I also there is
parallel development right there.
I'm going to give it the whole airport because of all the world building.
Oh shit! All right. In the original pilot, I didn't say this before. In the one that got aborted, the abortion one, the Marge is 34, and which is like, I was like, fuck, she's 34. And then also Homer and her talk about like, remember we were dating, and like this time we don't have chaperones, which makes you think that they came of age in like the 50s or something too. Watching it was just very strange for my brain to wrap my head around time. I probably shouldn't have admitted any of this, but that's where my head went.
I agree with you. I think it is. I think they were playing them older, and also they've obviously played with time and grades and ages and everything over time. But it did feel like they were somehow playing them as much older, even though they had young kids. It's interesting.
That is a weird sticking point for me, that the show's been on for 35 years and Bart is still in the 4th grade. I'm like, come on. It's ridiculous.
They must have done a million meta jokes about that.
Selman wrote an episode where like they retconned it and Marge and Homer came of age in like the 90s. And people got so mad at him. It's like, why do you care? Why do you care about that?
That's really
funny. People got mad.
That's odd. People got mad
There were
about
no
it.
chaperones in the 90s. In the aborted episode, they said they had chaperones.
I heard Sean say aborted on an episode, and I'd like to complain about that. So that's it for our show. I guess I just also wanted to say, because I realized we were covering the not only Simpsons pilot, but the Christmas episode of The Simpsons, and I believe this will be released before Christmas. So happy holidays to all of you, all of our single fan.
Also, the pilot of your show. You got to review this at some point, right?
Well,
You gotta...
I think I don't know if we misrepresented. This is the pilot for having guests. We have done other. Yes. Do you feel like we've oversold it and we're disappointing you that you're not the very first?
Do you want us to abort this pilot? Should we abort this pilot?
I think there may need to be an abortion. I apologize.
That's our little Christmas thank you is the word abortion 900 times.
I think going forward we should tell this is the first time we've had you as a guest. This is our pilot episode with you as a guest. Just to,
David Letterman, apparently he had a bunch of episodes with no guests for a long time.
That's right. He had to warm up. He had to figure out his format.
That was back when he thought it was going to be a not talk show.
It was an hour of top 10 lists.
Well, I'm still honored. I'm still taking the honor.
All right, good. Mitch, do you want to hang around for this?
Yeah. I'm down for whatever.
That is our show, folks. Thank you so much for listening. We are going to be releasing episodes of this show on the first and third Sunday of each month. In fact, we're already doing that, and we're going to continue doing that. So look forward to that. Also, follow us on social media at Copilots TV on all your favorite social media platforms and some of your least favorite ones. And if you're wondering where to watch the pilots that we're discussing, just check the show notes, because we'll always put down somewhere where you can actually see what we're talking about if you want to watch it ahead of time.
And do you like our show, or do you love our show? If you can give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it would really help us out. And if you give us that 5-star review, you will get your pilot's wings, which is not a real thing. We're not sending you anything. It means nothing. But
yeah, really selling that. That's great.
I don't like to raise expectations too much. We are, however, going to read some of the reviews, whether they're positive or negative, as long as they're 5 stars, to express our gratitude. I believe that we have a couple here. Sean, if you want to.
Yes, I have one here from Christopher Podcaster. So I think we should take this seriously because his name is Christopher.
He's the famous podcaster family, very powerful in the podcasting world. They were the robber barons of the podcasting world.
Right, the Carnegies. Came for Andy, stayed for Sean. I love the new podcast, featuring interesting discussion from engaging presenters, a touch of UCB-flavored improv, episode play-by-play. So good it doesn't matter if you've never seen these pilots.
What a rave.
Yeah.
We're hoping a lot of people in this episode came for the Mitch and then stayed for the Sean and Andy.
Or came for the Mitch and Sean and then stayed for the Andy. Or, there's a lot of variations.
Sure, for sure. The second one is from Lawrence Webb, who is also known as Donkey of Prey, whose review is How the Sausage is Made. This podcast has really ruined my enjoyment of television by telling me too much about how the sausage is made. Just kidding. Love it.
I don't know how much it would bother me to hear how the sausage is made. I know it's like a saying.
Yeah.
Like if they were like, we killed the pig and then I'd be like, okay.
You'd already be halfway through the sandwich.
We grind up the face. We grind up the hooves.
Honestly, that's why I've never read Fast Food Nation or any of the other stuff.
We cut out the butthole and take that through a meat grinder. Everything is, enjoy yourself.
Probably just be nodding. I think I just enjoy it.
Sausages are good, man. No doubt about that.
Mitch, thank you so much. You are our first guest. Couldn't have asked for a better one.
Yeah, you've set the bar very high.
It was an honor to be here, and I love it. And I love the show, and I love you guys. You guys are great, so thank you for having me.
Well, we love you too. I mean, I love you. I can't speak for Sean. You and I obviously have a big connection.
I would like to... I have to get to the dog track.
Thank you so much. Hello, folks. This is your co-pilot, Andy, speaking. If you enjoyed our interview with Mike Mitchell as much as we did, you can actually find more of it on our Patreon. That's right. We added bonus content up there that should be live before the holidays. So if you want to hear more and support the podcast, check it out. Mike talked to us about his experiences selling a pilot, the frustrations of development, the origin story and NPR tone of the Doughboys pilot, and how Russell Brand stole a pilot right out from under him. That's over at patreon.com/copilotstv. Until then, please bring your seats back to their upright position. I don't know. Does that sound off work any better?